My name's Darren Wake, and I'm Head of Customer Success at CustomerSure. And I'd love to welcome Ian Golding. So Ian, I'm sure many of you know who Ian is. Ian's an extremely well-known CX consultant who helps companies the world over to improve customer experience, and he's extremely passionate about doing the right thing for customers and making big changes out there. Ian, would you like to say a few words to introduce yourself?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. I probably don't need to say much more, but it's always a pleasure to chat with you. And doing the right thing, again, it might sound a little bit evangelical, but actually, genuinely, that's what we want to do. That's what I do, that's what you do. And I think it's so important that we're able to share knowledge in this way with people that aren't being sold to, that they're just able to gather information that helps them to understand certain things. So as you say, I've got no idea what you're going to ask me. I can sort of try and guess, but I won't tell you what my guesses are. We'll see what that is afterwards.
Yeah. Hey, sorry to interrupt, but this is quick and really worth it. Are you tired of manual processes and never getting to what really matters, which is actually taking action from customer feedback? Well, I think you'll find this really useful. CustomerSure's new AI-powered text analytics feature, where comments are automatically tagged, sentiment applied, and you get clear actions of where to prioritize your efforts. Now, click the link in the comments to get more information and really check it out. Now, let's get back to the video. The next statement I wanted to pose to you, Ian, is one where I'll just kind of to read it out is if I was the CX manager, head of CX somewhere, to understand how satisfied my customers are and understand what they think of what we do. VoC surveys is the only thing I need to focus on. It's the primary source to get an understanding of customer satisfaction and experience.
Again, it's a great question. I get asked this question a lot, and I am immediately going to say myth. And I will back up why I'm saying myth. Historically, and when I say historically, if you think back sort of 20 years ago, surveys and the sort of the creation of survey methodology was the primary way of trying to understand customer perception, maybe even longer than that, because I don't want to give away your age, Darren, but I know you've been doing this for a long time. But that historically was the way organizations started to figure out what is it that customers actually think of us. And it started with customer satisfaction surveys. The problem is that, like anything, a little bit like we've just had the conversation with NPS, organizations convince themselves that that is the only way to do something. And we are living in a world today where most organizations right now are entirely reliant on surveys that they push to customers to draw a conclusion about customer perception. NPS is no different to customer satisfaction. The problem is that surveys are only one source of VoC. People need to look back at what does voice of the customer mean. Voice of the customer doesn't mean voice of customers from surveys. It means voice of the customer. And that means we need to obtain anything that the customer expresses in any form to try and understand their perception. And what that means is that we should be gathering feedback that is both solicited through surveys and unsolicited. And it is the unsolicited feedback that is just as valuable as the surveys that we push, but too often is not combined with survey data. So what do I mean by unsolicited? I mean feedback that is given on review sites, Google, TripAdvisor, forums that might exist through different industry portals, There is a whole plethora of VoC that is out there in the
Yeah.
ether that is totally out of your control, but it is being posted every single second of every day.
Mm.
That feedback is as important, arguably even more important than the feedback that we're soliciting. But there is an even more important source, and that comes from within the organization itself. Because every single day, organizations are receiving telephone calls,
Yeah.
emails, SMSs that are also a form of VoC.
Yeah.
And we should be combining all of these sources together to draw a conclusion. Now, the challenge, though, is to do that manually is almost impossible. And you will know from your many years of doing this that historically, trying to interpret survey data manually, I mean, how on earth do you do it? If you're in a B2C, thousands, hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
of customers. Now, our lives were made slightly easier when text analytics tools came in, because that then allowed us to try and interpret the data more effectively. But in 2025, we are now very lucky to live in a world of AI. And whilst there are many terrible applications of AI, the beauty of AI from a VoC perspective is that it is able to instantly interpret all of these different sources of VoC together in one go.
Yeah.
And so, if your organization is not doing this yet, why not?
Yeah.
Because the technology is there already. And so if you're only relying on surveys, you are only relying on information you are pushing to the customer. It is likely that that feedback is not representative of the end-to-end customer. Most organizations only send surveys to customers who complete a transaction. They don't send them to customers who don't complete a transaction. Surveys are also typically after the event. So very often the feedback can be 1 day, 1 week, a month, sometimes even 6 months after the customer had the experience. If you're only relying on that, it is not going to be an accurate reflection of the truth. So is what you've asked me a myth? 100%.
Mm.
In 2025, we need to move to the next generation of VoC. And the next generation is bringing all forms of feedback together, leveraging AI to give us a truthful understanding of customer perception.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Ian. I think that's the next battleground, if I can call it that, or the next movement in VoC and in CX. And that I've long felt that surveys is a primary source of customer feedback, but it's by far from the only source that you're actually getting that feedback on a continual basis through all those anecdotal experiences, digital telephones, contact centers, account managers. It's always coming in. Plus, as you say, the reviews and that whole soup of stuff out there. And what we're seeing is every kind of organization that we deal with and conversations I have, people are at a different level of maturity on this, but
Yeah.
there's a real appetite and an awareness and an awakening, which is welcome, really, to consolidate that. And like you say, the technology and the use of AI is helping facilitate that at pace. And I think in the next kind of couple of years, I mean, it's something we've done and continuing to develop at CustomerSure, of that ability to pool it all together, to analyze that data from various sources and pull out what's driving satisfaction, what's leading people to stay with us as customers, what's causing them to abandon, what's causing our costs to increase through complaints or repeated high cost to serve. There's all these kind of insights in that data. And if you're just purely keeping it to the service window, you're missing out on an awful lot.
Exactly.
So I think
I'm going to steal your expression of the VoC soup. I think that's the perfect way to describe it.
yeah,
How are you going to interpret that soup?
yeah.
And you cannot do it from surveys alone.
Yeah, no, I think so, absolutely. And historically, there was an awareness that needed to happen, but it was very challenging to do so.
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
with the platforms available in VoC obviously the use of AI, it's helping facilitate that. So and what I'd say to organisations looking at that is it seems a big scary project in
Mm,
itself. but it's kind of crawl and walk and run, we say, with companies. And look, even if you suddenly say, right, we know there's all these different voices of VoC, let's just integrate a couple of others, or we know we've got a pool of data here. It's reviews, it's on Trustpilot,
Yeah,
it's on
yeah,
Google
yeah.
Reviews, or it's our complaint data that's inbound. Let's put that in there and see what that's adding to it. Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's totally fair. That VoC survey reliance in itself, whilst will always be there and will always be integral, I think it will increasingly become part of a suite of voices. So,
Agreed.
yeah. I'd just like to say thank you everyone for watching these, and please give us your comments or your views. If you disagree with Ian, if you disagree with me, we'd love to hear what people have got to think. If you've got ideas that you've seen work well when we're looking at NPS or VoC surveys or alternative ways to get feedback, and indeed talking about the use of bonuses as well. We'd love to know what you guys are working on and any views, even if you totally think
And
Ian and Darren are
any
talking
other
nonsense.
myths, if there are any other myths that you think need to
Yes.
be busted, tell us.
Um, just like to say thank you very much, Ian, and
Pleasure.
please give us your feedback. And as Ian says, any other myths you'd like to use, please supply them in the comments, and we'll cover them next time. Thank you.
Thank you.